Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Sorry, Josh. I just went catatonic, if you will.
Okay.
When I
like
see it.
looking if my screen is frozen here. Like, what's going on?
That'll Jason, work great for the podcast listeners.
Yeah,
Josh,
really great comedic bit there.
When I see a cat, I go into a state of, like I said, catatonicness there, Josh.
I thought maybe you had the fear of podcasting instead.
No, just cats, Josh. Cats.
Yeah.
Because when I was young, a cat crawled on me.
We can get into the psychology of this interesting phenomenon here in this film. In this season of Awesome Movie Year, we are talking about the movies of 1969, and we're here at our producer David Rosen's interesting pick. What did you pick for us, Dave?
I picked a movie called Eye of the Cat.
And was it just that you had not seen any other movie released in 1969?
Pretty much, yeah, actually. But as we'll find out, I'm very happy I picked this.
At least one of us is happy.
Well, this is our Halloween episode. So yes. We were also lucky that Dave gave us something, quote unquote, spooky.
Yeah.
Which it's not, of course.
No, but, I mean, I think Wikipedia labels this a horror movie, and this was the most horror-esque thing that we had for this season, but I wouldn't really call it that.
And I would say this is about as spooky as most Universal horror movies from the era.
Listen, it has a black cat, and you do think of black cats on Halloween, so yes. We'll give you that, Dave.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, to me, it had some elements that reminded me like of Giallo movies in more of it's as if like Disney made a Giallo movie or something. So yeah. We got that going for it, I guess, as well. But
also the title, the Eye of the Cat has nothing to do with this.
No, it should be called like Mouth of the Cat, really, to get what the main character is really afraid of.
Or just cat.
Just cat, yeah, or just cats, maybe. We could
House of the Cats.
That sounds like a Universal horror movie. Good job, Dave.
Very Edgar Allan Poe-ish, Dave.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. This movie, it was, I don't know, like it grossed $1.2 million apparently, but I don't know what its budget was. It's hard to say whether it was a hit, and that was the most information I could find about its box office prospects. And I don't know if it was a highly anticipated film. It did not win any awards. I personally was not familiar with any of the like main stars of this film. I don't think they were really very well known. It's not from a well-known filmmaker. It is a Universal film, but it doesn't have like, Frankenstein or Dracula or one of these iconic Universal monsters. So it's hard to say really if this was a movie that anybody cared about when it was released.
Well, the star Michael Sarrazin, we have talked about recently in our Midnight Cowboy episode, because he was supposed to play Joe Buck. And honestly, when I watched this, I thought he would have been a good Joe Buck. He's charming. He's got that kind of hustler charm to him. I thought he was good. And then the other big thing on this one, Josh, as far as, relation to films, Joseph Stefano, the writer, wrote Psycho. So, I mean, how you go and he was offered like 2 Hitchcock follow-ups, but he had co-created The Outer Limits. So he was working on that. And then he came back. Because if you're going to come back to film, you come back for Eye of the Cat.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, you can get the impression that this probably would have been better as like a 30-minute anthology episode. Maybe it wouldn't have been the most memorable episode of like The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone, but you could have boiled the story down to just those basic elements, and it probably would have been more enjoyable to watch. But yeah, to go from Psycho to this, to be fair, Psycho is based on a novel by Robert Bloch, and so the main sort of structure of it and all that is already there for someone to write. But certainly the structure of this, the screenplay, that's a very famously, the misdirection of it and everything. All credit to him for a classic.
Yeah, I mean, he did not, like you said, to go from Psycho to this. I mean, he did do The Outer Limits in between.
Right, yeah, and to go to from the Outer Limits to this too. I think, I mean, that's a classic TV series. Of course, the other thing about a lot of classic TV series, especially from this era when they would churn out so many episodes per season, that I'm sure there are dozens of terrible episodes of The Outer Limits, and this could have been one of them.
Yeah, so he had the opportunity to write The Birds and Marnie, but he was doing The Outer Limits. So, that's he, after that, co-wrote, produced, and directed The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre. That sounds like one that Dave would like. And then here, Eye of the Cat.
Eye of the Cat. Lots of cats in this film. I guess we should maybe say, because probably none of our listeners have seen this film, Michael Sarrazin plays a young man with, is it ailurophobia? I think, the fear of cats.
Yeah, maybe.
So, yeah, ailurophobia, something like that. He's very afraid of cats.
Yeah, he does not find cats alluring.
No, the opposite of that. But he is recruited by a young woman who is a hairdresser who has decided that she wants him to help her kill his rich aunt and inherit the money and then split it with her. And so they launch this very, very poorly thought out plan.
Well, that's what's so wild about it, because you watch the first 10 minutes of it and you're like, whoa, this is a Hitchcock movie, right? Like the way they're using the screen and the music. And, we know Lalo, what's his last name?
Lalo Schifrin, yeah, who did the music.
Yeah, so you get that whole Hitchcock feel. And like you said, this dude just executed Psycho at such a high level. And then you're like, what happened? What happened here? So.
Yeah, I mean, and that intro to me also, again, it reminded me of Giallo films, and it's all done without dialogue, and it's establishing the aunt and as this sort of invalid. She has emphysema, she has to use a wheelchair when she goes out, and she's in this oxygen tent, and all of this stuff is done wordlessly. And then she has this attack when she's at the hair salon, which is where the woman works who launches this plan. And I was intrigued. It's very stylish, and it does not go well from there.
Right. It is stylized. And honestly, as I'm watching more and more, there are certain shots that kind of keep that style. But the first 10 minutes are so highly stylized. I was like with you, I was like, yeah, I'm interested. The music's here. We have a unique setup. And then I just feel like they kind of drifted off, not just from, the writing standpoint, but from the stylization standpoint for a lot of it.
Yeah. And critics were not keen on this as well. In fact, Howard Thompson in the New York Times references some of this that we've just talked about. He said, if Eye of the Cat had lived up to the prelude title credits and the fade-in sequence, this new horror melodrama from Universal would have been a knockout. Unfortunately, the picture soon loses footing and begins to slant downhill. The plot is an overstated, reworked, and all too familiar one, that of a backfiring murder scheme by a wily derelict and a svelte beautician. David Lowell Rich's direction creates electric tension and real horror. However, the scenario by Joseph Stefano, who wrote no less a thriller than Hitchcock's Psycho, literally drops the cats about midpoint, then drags the animals back for a climax that is as hokey as it is horrible.
This is the things I don't understand, right? Because you're reading about Stefano and they're he was burned out from Outer Limits, so he goes back and does this. And I'm like, but this feels like from a writer who's burned out, right? Because, there are so many explanations that are so exposition heavy. And you're like, that's not even a reveal. That's just you filling in a plot hole so the audience can figure this out. And the biggest issue is you have that cat at the beginning and that great cat electrocution, right? That's the best part of the movie. And then the cats are nowhere for the next 67 minutes of the movie. It loses the promise of the film. And the cats, don't really do anything. In the end, there's two kind of clever bits with them towards the end that we can talk about. But I just think they should have leaned so much more into murder cats.
Yeah, I mean, and there's a sort of implication that cat from the beginning, the orange cat,
right,
that it gets electrocuted, and it seems like a pretty bad situation for the cat there. But then later on, the hairdresser is like, oh no, the cat was fine. And so there's an implication that cat is somehow maybe supernatural or is this mystical guardian of the aunt. And it does come back at the end, but they don't get into that at all.
So they use this shot twice. They use it in the middle and then the end. And I get why they're using it. They're using this whole pan from like kind of the ground of her estate all the way up to the top of the building. And who's there on the roof? Electric cat, right? The cat that was electrocuted. But yeah, I don't think you don't make the connection that like, oh, that's the electrocuted cat, right? And like, you never get there. And then that's also the last shot of the movie, which they just like stuck on the same frame. I don't know why they did that. Like, it was the cat who really masterminded everything, I guess.
Right. That's the idea. I mean, I think the other problem is that they're trying to build that up, but then you cut to the shots of the actual cat that they have in the film, and it just kind of like is chilling. It doesn't seem menacing. It doesn't seem like it's plotting anything. It doesn't seem like it has supernatural powers. It's just a cat that's sitting there.
Who's a cute little kitty?
Right, exactly. Exactly. So Variety, in their unbylined review, said, Pick has a few good jolts, successful buildups, and good-looking people. But stilted dialogue and plot shot through with holes keep mystery at a minimum, suspense overdue. Despite San Francisco as backdrop, with North Beach and Sausalito tossed in for spice, film trips over its own cliches and errors. David Lowell Rich's direction often misleads, but he does manage to get actors to speak bad lines with straight faces.
Director got actor to speak lines.
Right, really the most backhanded compliment they could possibly give this film.
Yeah. Director got director of photography to put camera on actors and film.
Yeah, well, Variety is always in their reviews. They're always very meticulously going through, and the production design was this, and the lensing was this. So the direction was existent. Actors appeared in this film.
Director got composer to write music for movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess what they're sort of saying is that, hey, the actors are giving it their best to this poorly written movie.
They're fine. The acting is fine in the movie. Like, that's not a negative on this film.
Right. Although weirdly, I think it might have been better if the acting was not worse, but maybe this movie should be way campier. I think it's so stupid that they should have played up the ridiculously of it.
Right. One thing though, Josh, director did not get cat to look menacing.
No, that is true. Whoever was responsible for herding the cats into some sort of sense of eeriness or danger or whatever has completely failed in this film.
Josh writes a lot of articles on cocaine crocodile and stuff like that. I feel like Murder Cats would be a great movie for us to make just so you could review it.
Yeah, I mean, and there are plenty of horror movies related to cats or about evil cats or menacing cats or with cats as sort of like
any animal
harbingers of doom. Right. But cats in particular. But this movie fails to capture that. So finally, Kevin Thomas in the LA Times was very much not a fan. He said, Eye of the Cat is so unintentionally hilarious that one would be tempted to recommend it were not the price of theater admission so high these days. Surely no critic, having to see it in the line of duty, could come away without feeling deeply gratified that it's so pristine in its badness that it provides 102 minutes of steady laughter. At any rate, it's one of those delirious 40s-type suspense melodramas, dirtied and sexed up a bit here and there for the 60s, but played absolutely straight under the direction of David Lowell Rich, whose familiar, admirable unwillingness to condescend to his material proves only to be his undoing here.
Yeah, that goes back to what you're saying about a campier tone. I didn't find it hilarious. I do wish it, when we talk about movies like The Room, right? Those are the ones that get me. This one didn't. After the first 10 minutes, I was just over it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it could have been funny if it had played up the ridiculousness more. The one scene that I found amusing, and I think that captures that tone, is when they go to the swinging party that kind of reminded me of the Andy Warhol party in Midnight Cowboy, and they're all getting high. And there's these little vignettes of people at the party, basically delivering hacky one-liners that I thought, the guy was like, I told my mom that I was a latent homosexual, and she said, better latent than never. You expect a rim shot there. And I feel like that was the tone I wanted for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I just think it's also strange. Like even the beginning, after the sequence we talked about, our main character Wiley is in bed with a woman, and then the hairdresser who he's never met before comes in and is like, "Put your clothes on. You're coming with me." And he's just like, "Okay, I'm gonna go now." And he's like, "Where are we going?" She's like, "You'll find out soon enough." "What are we doing?" "Don't worry about that." And he just goes along with it as if like some random woman comes in, and then like they go back to her place and she's zhuzhing him up, giving him the beauty treatment. And it just seems like he's like, I'm along for the ride. Why not?
Yeah, you get the impression that this dude assumes that every woman wants to have sex with him. And he's in bed with some other woman and they had sex. And he's like, oh, look, this other hot lady came in and now she wants me to go with her. So I bet I'm going to have sex with her too. And he's right.
Yeah.
Well, it was the swinging 60s.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's something between him and the aunt, right?
Oh, yeah. That was another thing that I wish they played up more, that like clearly there's some incestuous deal going on with him and the aunt. And also, which reminded me of Joe Buck's relationship with his grandmother in Midnight Cowboy.
I think, Midnight Cowboy, we know there's a more serious kind of backstory to it, but I think they could have played the incestuous aunt nephew love connection up for comedy here.
Yeah. Also, though, I wonder, is she literally his aunt? Or is she just like a woman he called aunt because she had sex with his dad?
I don't know. And they allude to like that she helped murder the mom and get the mom out of the picture. Like, there's all types of just a mess here, Josh.
Yeah, I feel like we could have played that up a little more, but none of it. Right. We're talking about all these different avenues that are sort of missed opportunities. And instead it's just this like dopey, straightforward thing that, again, reminded me in a way of like Disney or like crappy William Castle movies, which I mean, some of those are very inventive, but they always have these really dumb mystery plots at their core, like a Scooby-Doo type mystery or whatever. And that's all we got here. Yeah. So Dave, you had not seen this before, obviously.
No, I hadn't. And yeah, it like you guys said, that first like 5-10 minutes or so are so good. And I'm not going to sit here and like try to say that this is some secret masterpiece or anything, although I did like it more than either of you did. But if it had lived up to the beginning, this would have been quite a find.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I guess. I mean, that beginning is good and it's better than the rest of the movie, but it's not, we shouldn't overstate how great it is. So,
I mean, you got like the reviewer said, you got San Francisco, you got Sausalito.
Yeah.
You have this, this kind of Norma Desmond type aunt, there's a lot of meat on the bone that you can play with here, Josh.
Yeah,
like
could.
Cats, they might eat the meat off the bone.
The cats,
they do like the raw meat.
Yeah,
we saw that.
So, Jason, you, I assume, had not seen this or perhaps heard of it.
Nope.
No, I had not either. I had heard of it because, I mean, as much as we're trashing this movie, I think at the time that we were planning this season, this movie was on the Criterion Channel as part of a collection of movies about cats that they had on there. So someone at Criterion felt like this movie had value, but they were wrong.
Go watch Cat People, the Paul Schrader movie.
Or the original Cat People, which is even better, I think.
But,
yeah. And we can talk all about our favorite cat movies maybe later. But anything else you want to say on the background of this film?
Yes,
Jason?
Josh. I have a guest review here from Mr. Mittens who says, meow, meow.
Yeah, that's Dave, did you watch this movie with your cats?
Oh, absolutely. They were very much enjoying it. Harvey was watching the screen. Gina was with me. It was a whole family affair.
Harvey is a dog and Gina is a human, FYI.
Yeah, for people listening, yes.
Are your cats upset with you that you have a music project about your dogs, but not about the cats?
Oh, thank you so much for bringing that up, Jason, because ulterior motive for this episode, I'm going to plug the hell out of the Pup Pups album, which is coming out this December. Pre-orders launching any day now when this goes up. And actually, there are songs about the cats on the album, but I kept the band name the Pup Pups, even though,
So they're expanding the scope. It's like, Sgt. Pepper, Josh, after the Beatles went to India. Yeah. You get it, man.
Yeah.
But Dave, is there a song about Eye of the Cat?
There's not, although there is a Halloween song on the album. So
I mean, technically a tiger's a cat, so Eye of the Tiger could have been a theme song.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll come back and talk more of our general thoughts on Eye of the Cat. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1969, we are talking about our producer David Rosen's pick, Eye of the Cat. And Dave, I guess you like this for some reason?
I did. I mean,
No.
so I wish it was better. Don't get me wrong. But I think, okay, so first of all, you go into this movie knowing what it's about. You hope there's a lot of cats and they're hissing and jumping and doing cat things. You get that at the end of the movie. They deliver the goods in those last 10 minutes. We already talked about the first 10 minutes being great. The middle is just fucking weird. And so I wish it was even weirder, but there's a lot to this plan that just makes no sense. I think the relationship with the aunt is crazy. I think his relationship with the other women is crazy. I think there's a lot of really fun stuff. I think it is pretty campy at times. I just think it lags too much, unfortunately. And if it didn't lag in the middle, it would, I would have loved it, because I do think that it gets really, really strange throughout. I think the way that everybody talks, it's almost like sociopathic. Like they just don't connect with each other in any real way. And I was all into that. Like I thought some of that was super weird and fun.
Yeah, I feel like it could have been so much weirder, and that you're a little maybe overstating the craziness of it, especially in the middle, where a lot of it is, it is just that straightforward, like kind of dopey mystery, and their plan does make no sense.
The cats don't do anything.
No,
that's the big issue.
That's the big issue. Absolutely. There should be more of that. I also think, I mean, this may be legacy or whatever, but like we always talk about like, why are they remaking all these classics? This is a movie that should be remade. It would be so good, I think, nowadays.
James Wan's Eye of the Cat. I could go for that.
So yeah, I mean, this is one of those where they would probably just take the title and throw out everything else, right? Because of the IP value. It is a good title. You read that title and you think that sounds like an intriguing horror movie. Like, what is the cat going to do? What mysteries lie within the mind of the cat, behind its eyes? And the answer is
none. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, when when I watched The Beekeeper this year, which is a way better movie, at one point they electrocute all the bees, and I'm like, dude, if we get electro bees to like fight, that's going to be so awesome. And this cat gets electrocuted. We thought it's dead, but it comes back. But like, I want electro cat. I want murder cats. I want, there's so many avenues where these cats could have been menacing and messing people up. And like, you got, like we said, Lalo Schifrin. So you could have really played up the sound effects and the eeriness of it. And it's just not there. Dave, you're talking about how the characters don't connect. Like the Wiley character, I think that in a way it was almost written as like too clever for its own good, because he says stuff that just doesn't make sense. Like even the last line when like all these plans are like, kind of out in the open, and was he trying to murder her? No, he tries to help her. And then like what happens? He just goes, well, I wasn't planning on staying here anyway. And that's the end of the movie. Like,
it's
what?
So weird.
Yeah, nothing is resolved, and you get the big reveal. I mean, we'll reveal it, not that it matters, but that the brother, who we haven't mentioned yet, but Wiley's brother, who seems like he's this sort of hapless victim, was really the mastermind of the whole plan. And he wanted to kill the aunt and kill Wiley so that he could get the money himself. And he's enlisted the hairdresser, Cassia, to help him with this.
Yeah, they're
plan.
lovers.
Yeah, they're lovers. And it is all revealed. And Wiley's like, oh, well, bye. And that's the end of the movie.
Right. And even the reveals of like how Wiley saved her by moving her from like her room down into like the outdoors, like they just never come off as like, oh, he did it or anything like that. The brother, is it Lyle? Is that his name, Josh? Lyle?
Maybe. I don't know.
Sure. We'll go with Luke. Right. Yeah. Like he has a chance to actually succeed and kill his brother, who's got into one of these catatonic states, but he's like, no, he has to be put in the room downstairs so the cats can be in the room with him, as opposed to just leaving him there and like letting him die. And it just, none of it really works. I will say the one sequence in the middle that did work great was the sequence where Aunt Danny is in her wheelchair and her wheelchair malfunctions, and she's basically going to fall all the way down into the hill onto one of the main streets. She's going to roll down the hill backwards in her wheelchair into the main streets of San Francisco, where she is sure to be crushed by a car and killed. And, you know, we have our friend Wiley actually run out and save her, but a cat jumps on him and it, you know, scares him. And then she falls, and out of nowhere, Luke saves her. I thought that was a good, very Hitchcockian, well-executed sequence.
Yeah, although it bothered me because she can walk, right? We've established that she's not unable to walk. She just goes out in that wheelchair because she shouldn't exert herself too much because of her lung capacity. So couldn't she have just like gotten up out of the wheelchair?
Oh my God, the sequence is terrible. I didn't even remember that she could walk. Get rid of that sequence. It's garbage.
We were talking about that here too, like about why she can walk, but then she can't walk. It's just scene by scene, whether or not, you know.
Right.
I mean, that's the type of logic I hate in films. Where it just loses that.
Right. And I understood why she was in a wheelchair, right? She can physically, like her legs work fine. It's just that her lung capacity is diminished. And so she needs to not be exerting herself if they go out. And so she shouldn't be walking. But yeah, I mean, I was watching it and thinking this, and I thought like, well, maybe they're trying to imply that she's somehow stuck in the chair or whatever. There is one point after a while that her foot seems to be kind of stuck, but it's already past the point where she could have gotten up out of the chair at the first sign of something being wrong, right? Because the motor stops working or whatever. So yeah, I mean, it is still well constructed, Jason. I don't think you're entirely wrong. The editing of it, but you have to buy into the idea that she can't get out of the chair. And all I was thinking was like, this is fake. You know, this is sort of the premise is false to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, Josh, if I'm going to sum it up, I would say this movie is a catastrophe.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if on the other hand, it's so silly that I was kind of amused by it. Just like, what is this even doing? You know? And there were sequences like, again, the sort of swing-in party, the Warhol-esque party, where I was like, okay, this is what I would enjoy about this film, like the ridiculousness of it. And then the woman from the beginning who he was in bed with comes back, and she has this ridiculous cat fight with Cassia, with Cassia, the hairdresser. And it's like, has no bearing on the plot whatsoever, but it was just amusingly ridiculous. And just also the idea that this dopey guy is like the one person that every woman is after. They're going to have this drag out physical fight over this guy.
You know what this movie needed, Josh? Roger Corman.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would have really upped it, as like if he was producing it, he would have leaned into all the things we would have wanted.
Right. I mean, and as like weirdly Disney as it is, it's like got some nudity there at the beginning. Corman would have put more nudity.
Yeah. And that would have been welcome.
Yes, I agree. But I was surprised there at the beginning when all of a sudden, you know, when Wiley is in bed with that other woman and Cassia comes to get him and the woman gets out of bed and she's naked and we see her topless. Like, that wasn't what I expected out of this movie. And then there's no more of that. Like, it's not a sexually explicit or even sexy movie particularly.
Right. He makes love to Cassia, but it's, you know, it's not as erotic, Josh.
No, it's sort of perfunctory, right? She tells him at one point she's falling in love with him. And even though we learn later, presumably she's lying because it's part of the plan with the brother, it doesn't sound convincing in the moment anyway.
Yeah. It's just the whole thing doesn't work. More cats, Josh. More cats. More menacing cats. You could have put a cat in every scene in this movie fucking things up and it would have helped.
Yeah, or even just a cat in the background, maybe, right? Like, Dave, as you say, like the cats disappear for a long period of time. And I mean, they're supposed to sort of, right? The idea is that the brother gets rid of the cats because of Wiley's fear so that he can move back into the house with the aunt, which is what she wants. And so we've established that the cats have been taken away, but they really haven't been. And we know that they're going to come back. So if we saw them more in the background during that period.
I would have ended every scene with a different shot of a cat, snap zooms, pullbacks, and crazy like sound effects. And I think that would have like elevated the whole piece.
There are some great camera things in there, but not enough. But I will say another thing just to add to just the weirdness and just like nothing necessarily making sense of this. The old lady doesn't even really know why she has all these cats.
Right. She's just
not
like,
that old.
They just showed up. They just showed up at one time. And I think that goes to the idea that there's like something mystical going on here, right? We've got the orange cat who survives being electrocuted and seems to be some sort of guardian for her. And the cats all just arrived. But like, why? What does this have to do with anything? Why is she getting a bunch of cats to protect her? Why are they drawn to her? What is the deal with that?
She's not a cat lady. They're just there.
Right.
Leaving her estate to them.
Right. I did wonder, like, at one point, I think it would have been also fun to play up like the cats want the money, right? The cats are pissed that she changed the will to leave her money to Wiley. And they're like, no, we want the money. And so they're going to go back for it.
I'm leaving my money to my cats. That's for sure.
That's good. I think you should, especially since Gina makes all the money in your house. But Josh, like you're saying, like, they allude to like the cat's always going to protect this lady, right? She's always going to be protected. The cats will always protect her. And like, I wanted to see more of that. Like, the cat protection service, that's what we needed.
Yeah. And also, is it legally viable to leave your money to your cats? I don't know how that works.
So.
Why not?
The cats can't manage money. They can't spend it. Like there has
certainly
to be
not in this film. They can't.
Yeah, no, the cats are really chaotic in this film. But I mean, there has to be like a human sort of trustee, right? For the cats.
Yes. I mean, Garfield probably could have managed money.
Yeah. I wonder if I can literally leave the royalties to my cats for the Pups new album.
There are no royalties.
Yeah, you can, Dave.
5 listeners a month.
Yeah.
What is 10% of zero, Dave?
Right. Well, I feel like there was a news story somewhat recently about some like eccentric rich person who did leave all their money like to their dog, and there was some way in which that worked, but I don't know exactly how that is.
I mean, right there, Josh, look, we're of course in real life not for this, but what if there was a dog who wandered onto the property and the cats just mutilated this dog and ate him alive and just skinned it to the bone?
I think that maybe would have not been the right tone, but I feel like we could have but I mean, I'm with you. I feel like we could have had more random cat murders, like other people who threaten the lady in some way, like a burglar breaks into the house and the cats fuck up the burglar. Or
a landscaper who's going to blackmail her or whatever it is, like,
right.
You know what, Josh? This movie has been declawed.
Yes, it has. But I mean, I don't know that it has been declawed in the sense that you never get the idea that they intended for it to be more intense or more violent or anything that was toned down. It is meant to be this kind of sanitized, like goofy, as Kevin Thomas says, like 40s style, murder mystery. It's not even really a mystery. I mean, I guess it is because we do have a big reveal at the end, but we're not looking for a solution per se.
I mean, to me, as much of that, it's definitely hearkening to those Hitchcock movies, which obviously he was around then, but in this decade, especially the 60s Hitchcock movies and the setting and the music, like they're really, really going for it.
Do you think if Hitchcock...
But then they don't.
No, they don't. Yeah, I wonder if Hitchcock had gotten this script from the guy who wrote Psycho and said, hey, I wrote this new movie, do you think Hitchcock could have made something out of this?
I don't think he would have greenlit this script. I think he would have said, like, take these first 10 minutes and, like, really stud it out and everything. I mean, there's so many better versions of this with Hitchcock without cats, of course.
No, I mean, I look at what Hitchcock did with birds, right? I can see the marketing campaign. First there were the birds, now there are the cats.
Yeah.
And because I mean, the birds in the birds oftentimes are just kind of sitting there like the cats in this movie, but they're always freaky because Hitchcock presents them in the right way.
You're right, Josh. More birds, less cats.
No, I'm saying more Hitchcock, less David Lowell Rich.
Yeah, I mean, and also big mistake not casting Cary Grant as the lead.
Yeah, well, they probably didn't have the budget for Cary Grant in this film.
I don't know. I'm trying to think, like, is it To Catch a Thief? Maybe the one I'm thinking of. I think that's probably it, where like they go to that guy's like big mansion, and there are all these, like, he's so confused at the beginning about what's happening, and he's caught up in a scheme he doesn't know. Like, that's kind of the best version of this.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, you never get the sense that Wiley, the main character, is like in over his head or whatever. He's just such a go with the flow guy. He's like, oh, hey, you want me to go with you, lady? All right. You want me to, have a makeover? Okay. You want me to murder my aunt? Sounds good. He just doesn't really have any agency or a sense of like I mean, he has this fear of cats, but he doesn't really have any concerns about anything else.
But at the same time, he doesn't murder the aunt, and he does save her multiple times. So I'm, again, confused on that.
Right. But I mean, it seems like he would have been up for murdering the aunt, except it turns out that his brother got to it first. Right?
It's so weird.
It is certainly confusing. So I don't know. I feel like we've exhausted. Is there any other aspect of this that we need to address? I feel like we've kind of covered everything that's going on in this film.
I like when the doctor says, "I shot every stimulant known to science into that girl, and all for nothing. She died."
Right. Well, I think that's an important point, right? He's describing how he once had this patient who was claustrophobic and was locked in a closet for 3 hours and was so paralyzed with fear that despite the stimulants, that she just died of fright. And this is establishing, I think, the idea that if we put enough cats in the room with Wiley, he will similarly die of fright, which again is such a hokey, old melodrama plot device. It's not real in any way. But we have to have the doctor here's some information that you might find valuable for later in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's all just so clumsy. And I mean, that doctor character, I feel like he just comes in, that's his sole function every time. He's like, well, Danny, let me tell you about your condition and how someone might effectively murder you.
Yeah.
Josh, it was North by Northwest I was thinking of.
Yeah, that's where he is a character in over his head. I feel like in To Catch a Thief, it's the opposite. He's the one kind of manipulating things.
Catch and punch me in the head for messing that up.
Both Cary Grant though, right?
Push you off a ladder, maybe.
Yeah. So do we want to rate this out of 5 cats?
Yeah,
sure.
5 eyes of a cat.
That was a 5-eyed cat. That's scary. Yeah. How many cat eyes are you going to give this, Jason?
I think I was going to give it 2, but per this conversation and Dave's constant changing on Letterboxd, I'm going to give it 1.5.
Ooh,
1.5 cat eyes.
Man, that is harsh. I didn't hate it that much. I didn't like it, but I was mildly amused by its absurdity. So I'm giving it 2.5. Cat
Holy
eyes.
cow. That's insane, Josh.
So,
holy cat.
lot of half eyes of cats, which are disturbing. So Dave, what do you give this?
I'm going to 3.5. I had fun with
3.5?
3.5. I wish it was more fun, but I did enjoy this movie. I did have a good time with it.
All right.
Josh, did you say 3.5?
I think he did. We got more half eyes going on. It's very disturbing. So
yes.
We'll come back and talk about the legacy of Eye of the Cat. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 1969, we are talking about our producer David Rosen's pick, Eye of the Cat. And as we've kind of said, nobody involved in this film really went on to a lot of great, exciting stuff, although some had interesting backgrounds leading up to this. I mean, we mentioned the writer Joseph Stefano, who worked on Psycho and The Outer Limits, but maybe he was so burned out after this film that his career, he didn't have any big highlights after this. He worked a bit more in TV, but nothing on the level of those major classics.
Right. David Lowell Rich was a working director, over 100 films and TV shows between 1950 and 87. His brother, John Rich, also a director. But David won an Emmy for Outstanding Direction of a Special in 1978 for the defection of Seamus Kadirka, Josh. I can't pronounce. Yeah, that's terrible pronunciation. But whatever. He directed Have Rocket Will Travel with the Three Stooges featuring Curly Joe. So probably not the best. But the two I wanted to ask about, Josh, The Judge and Jake Weiler with Bette Davis. You ever see that one? You love Bette Davis.
I do love Bette Davis. And I haven't seen much of Bette Davis's TV movies and TV miniseries, which a lot of them are really hard to find. And that is one of those. So I would love to, though. I mean, I'm fascinated by her work, and especially that later TV stuff is interesting.
And Josh, a movie you brought up in our Miss Jean Brody episode, Satan's School for Girls, the Pamela Franklin vehicle.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I mean, I did bring it up because of Pamela Franklin and her sort of status as a scream queen briefly there. And that was one of those films that she did. And I would check that out too. I mean, it's got a great title, if nothing else. Another film of his called Madam X from 1966 with Lana Turner is kind of a cult classic and is known for being like a crazy film that I have not seen that either. So some interesting ones, but he's certainly like this journeyman where it seems like if he stumbled into something campy or whatever, it was almost by accident. I mean, he directed one of the Airport sequels. He directed a TV version of Little Women. I mean, he's just kind of all over the place. Like you said, he's got 100+ credits. He's one of these guys who just probably took whatever job was available for decades.
We mentioned the cinematography here done by Russell Meddy and Ellsworth Fredericks. Meddy has an Academy Award for Spartacus and has done films including Touch of Evil and The Misfits. And Fredericks was nominated for Sayonara and did Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So really credible DPs here.
Yeah, and I mean, some of this does look pretty great. I mean, especially that opening sequence, as we've said, but also all the scenery, as was noted in those reviews. The location stuff in San Francisco looks pretty good too. So yeah, it's just the writing and the acting and that stuff is not.
Yeah, we've probably mentioned Lalo Schifrin on our Cool Hand Luke episode, but he's a legend, 5-time Grammy winner, nominated for 6 Academy Awards, 4 Emmys. His theme song from Mission Impossible and maybe Mannix, but did the score for Bullet. He did Amityville Horror. He did, I think, Enter the Dragon. So and the Rush Hour trilogy and Dirty Harry. Lots of movies, Josh.
Wow.
Lots of movies.
Yeah, long career.
Different types of movies too.
That is true. We might have mentioned him in our Mission Impossible 2 episode as well. Although, I mean, he didn't do the score for that. But as you said, that theme song is easily the most well-known thing that he's ever done. As we said, Michael Sarrazin almost was Joe Buck in Midnight Cowboy, but he did have his sort of highlight of his career in this same year when he was in They Shoot Horses, Don't They?, which is a pretty classic film. But otherwise, he didn't have much of a notable career. I remember him from this TV movie this kind of underrated TV movie that I watched when I was writing about a lot of Frankenstein movies called Frankenstein: The True Story, where he plays the monster and he does a good job of that. And it's an interesting take on the story. But overall, not someone, I mean, I wonder if he had been cast in Midnight Cowboy, if it would have been the breakout for him that it was for Jon Voight, because he obviously was not a huge star at the time, just like Jon Voight wasn't, but he didn't get that opportunity.
This Frankenstein: The True Story, was that authorized or unauthorized?
Well, it's in fact not true. It's a misleading title.
Mm-hmm.
Like Eye of the Cat is.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Gayle Hunnicutt, who played Cassia, was in Marlowe and was often cast as like the sex pot. Eleanor Parker, who was Aunt Danny, was nominated for 3 Academy Awards, Josh, for Cage, Detective Story, and Interrupted Melody.
Yeah, all of those movies from the 50s, none of which I've heard of. Have you?
3 nominations, Josh.
But I mean, I think that goes to the fact that, the most recent of those was 14 years before this, that a lot of these, people are kind of, this wasn't the height of their careers for anybody really involved in this film.
I do have to ask you guys a cast-related question here. I assume, the average lifespan of a cat is, 15 to 20 years, roughly. So Tulia the cat is credited as an actor in this film, and also in a 2020 film called Pacific Breeze.
That cannot be possible. I'm sure that's a different cat with the same name.
A descendant, Tulia the
the immortal, maybe because the electrocution made the cat immortal or something. Yeah.
I might have to watch that movie, though, just to find out what's going on.
I have not heard of that one.
I have another movie that I want Dave to watch. It's called Eye of the Cat, and it's from 1975. It's an Italian movie that won the Donatello Award for Best Screenplay in 1976, directed by Alberto Bevilacqua, starring Nino Manfredi and Eli Wallach. Dave, will you watch that and report back on our epilogue episode?
I will do that for you, Jason. Absolutely. As long as it's got a cat in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it must.
I would imagine.
Josh, we're talking about these actors. Originally, Tippi Hedren was offered the Danny part, and they wanted Terrence Stamp as Wiley. Do you think that would have helped? I don't know if anything could have helped this movie.
I mean, it wouldn't have hurt, I think, to get some stronger performers. I feel like Terrence Stamp has... The thing about Wiley is he's not Wiley, right? He's just sort of dopey. And Terrence Stamp has more edge to him. I feel like he could have made that character a bit more prickly. I mean, the other thing about this movie is like, who are we even meant to root for? And if Wiley were more like devious, we could root against him, more, right? We would have a villain, but there really isn't a villain or a hero in this movie. And that's the problem. And I feel like performers with more distinctive presences could have helped.
Yeah. What if like this guy was like mean to the cats and they had to rise up against them?
Yeah, I mean, as we said, well, we didn't really get into, but like the formative story of why he's afraid of cats doesn't even really make sense. Like once when I was a kid, I was lying in bed and there was a cat there.
Cat came and cuddled me.
Yeah,
I used to be scared of cats.
Did you really?
You were a scaredy cat of cats?
Did you have some sort of formative experience related to that?
No, I just thought they were too unpredictable. But then I petted one, and the rest is history.
So it didn't take you a whole lot for you to overcome that fear.
Just like this guy getting his fear.
Wait, Dave, I've asked you this on a piecing it together. I think you're scared of bugs now, right?
Yeah, Why
don't you just pet some bugs then?
That's a disgusting thing to say, Jason.
Yeah, I'm with Dave on that one. I'm not petting any bugs. That's never going to happen.
Fine.
So, anything else you want to say? Do we want to mention any favorite cat movies?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not my favorite, but I just watched The Black Cat from 1934 with Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and I would recommend that just to see those two guys together in a much eerier tone.
Yeah, that's a fun, like, universal, horror. I feel like that's the tone that we might have hoped for with this film. I honestly, I'm not really sure off the top of my head, but there's a Stephen King adaptation movie called Cat's Eye that I feel like is a better version, where the cat is also just kind of in the background and guiding you through this horror anthology, and it's kind of fun. It's uneven as anthologies are, but it's a fun one. So, Dave, any thoughts on that?
I'll go with Jonesy the cat in the first Alien.
That's a good one.
And then not horror, but I'll go with the cat in Inside Llewyn Davis, which is a great performance, really, as far as cat performances go.
Yeah,
I really thought Dave was going to go with Keanu, but
I've actually never seen it, surprisingly.
That is surprising. Josh, can we give some love to the Aristocats and Oliver and Company at least, though?
Yeah, I guess. I haven't seen those since I was a kid. I feel like those are not the height of the Disney animated films, though.
Everybody wants to be a cat.
All right. So, Dave, what is your cat's favorite movie?
Oh, damn, that's a good question.
Emmanuel in Space.
Damn it. Hold on a second. I'm going to edit this.
Oh, he's going to go ask. He's going to go ask the cat.
What's the animated cat movie that we wanted to show Millie?
Don't edit this. This has to stay in.
The Aristocats.
That's what I just said. The Aristocats is awesome, dude.
Yeah, she's seen little bits and pieces. We haven't watched the whole thing yet, but she loves the little clips that she's seen.
And it's got that song I was just singing. So come on, man.
Well, maybe I need to rewatch the Aristocats at some point in the future. Maybe
we'll because Josh, an
episode of it.
A cat's the only cat who knows where it's at.
Jason clearly
he's a big fan.
Lots of Aristocats knowledge going on.
Wow.
I like the Aristocats.
Obviously so. So that's Eye of the Cat, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. You can meow at us online and on social media.
Meow, 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 meow. Jason Harris comedy. Meow, 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 meow. Jay Harris comedy. Meow, 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 meow. Go for Jason. Meow, 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 meow. Eat This Comedy Trivia Nights. We're at awesomemovieyear.com. Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. Awesome Movie Pod on the platform that cats should murder.
Okay, well, you can find some old things from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I am on Facebook at Josh Bell Hates Everything, on that X Twitter platform at Signal Bleed, as well as at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky and Letterboxd. If you're on Letterboxd and you watch this movie for some reason, or any of the movies that we talk about on this show, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And you can listen to our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Before I do my plug, a real cat lady wants to chime in real quick. What do you want to say?
I just wanted to say that you have a poster on your wall.
I brought up Inside Llewyn Davis.
Yeah.
I have the poster on my wall over here. She wants everybody to know.
Oh.
So, yeah,
make
there
sure
we
you
go.
put a screenshot on the Facebook page.
I will do it. Absolutely. Uh-oh, she's coming back.
This is worth it just to watch Josh's face.
This is really great stuff.
Oh, she's got one of those. I
Yeah.
don't even know what those are. Cat toys.
Okay. I'll edit that part out. So, yes, you can find Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. But of course, I mainly have to plug that at the time this goes up, it'll be your last chance to pre-order the new Pup Pups album, A Boy and His Dog and Three Cats and a Bear. And if you pre-order it, you get your pet's name on the bonus song, which I've done on the last 3 Pup Pups albums as well. And this time I'm getting it pressed on vinyl, so you're really going to want a copy of this. So check that out. On all of my socials, you'll be able to find links to that and a link down below.
This pick of Dave's was all a ploy so he could plug his album, Josh.
I didn't know it was going to line up that way. I had no idea, but it's kismet.
It worked out very well. So, Jason, what is in our next episode?
Josh, can I just say for our Halloween episode, I feel like Charlie Brown and Dave gave us a rock with this film.
It was not a treat. It was a trick.
Yes, I agree. Our next episode, Josh, is that our audience choice episode there?
Yeah.
We left it up to the audience. We picked 3 movie musicals from 1969, and they went with Sweet Charity, the only Bob Fosse movie I have yet to see. I will be happy to complete the collection.
So tune in next time for Sweet Charity, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.
Hey everybody, Dave here. The guys said it would be okay if I played you a preview of the new The Pup Pups album that I plugged all throughout the show. This being a Halloween episode, this is the Halloween themed song. It's called Dr. Frankenstein. It's about our crazy little dog, Harvey. Hope you enjoy it, and the album will be out on streaming on December 6th.
I created a monster. I must be out my mind.